Guys, welcome to a special live edition of Phin-Addict Fury with Larry K. I'm here because we got breaking news. The breaking news is that after all this nonsense we've gone through, after everything we've heard, after all the distractions, after report, after report, after report again of Deshaun Watson becoming a Miami Dolphin, of the fact that he's waived his no-trade clause for only one team, the Miami Dolphins, despite the fact that the Miami Dolphins have been involved in the trade talks for months. We get word less than 2 hours from the trade deadline, today at 4 o'clock, that the Miami Dolphins are declining to pursue Deshaun Watson, declining to do it. Why is it crazy? Well, here's the number one thing we know now. We were definitely considering it and were close to doing it the entire time, because if we didn't make the final call now, only now, less than 2 hours from the deadline, finally we deny that we're doing it. It's over. We're not doing it. That means that the whole time before this, we were considering doing it. We were involved in doing it. So I know there's going to be a whole bunch of two-and-ears out here. You know, you're going to act like this means that Tua is the long-term guy. We're settled on him. He's the man. He's the future. That doesn't mean that at all. It means they don't believe in Tua. They don't believe in Tua enough that they were pursuing Watson. They may still pursue Watson. Who knows? In the offseason. So now we got to deal with this continued distraction and this continued purgatory for even longer as time goes on. Because it's still not over. It's not over until he either gets convicted of a crime and can't play football anymore, or he goes to a different team, or he retires, or he goes to Miami. It's not going to be over. So this looming distraction is going to stay over our heads. And here's the craziest thing about it is this owner. And FM, you know what? I'm not surprised. FM says it's the Dolphins. Are we really surprised? I say no. But I'm still mad. I'm still furious. You know why I'm not surprised the most? Here's what bothers me the most about this trade. If we are to believe the reports, now, and this is the first time we've had consensus reports. This is the first time we've had consensus reports from reputable members of the journalism community, right? This is the first time everybody's coalesced around the same thing. Adam Schefter, the guy for the Houston Chronicle, his name escapes me at the moment, and I apologize for that. But everybody, John McClain, they all say the same thing now. This is the first time we've had consensus, and the consensus is that the final decision was made just now by who? By owner Stephan Ross. By owner Stephan Ross. Not the football people. Didn't we hear? Oh, no, the football people are going to make all the decisions. They have full autonomy. No. Owner Stephan Ross. That means it wasn't Chris Greer who said, oh, this is too much to give up. It wasn't the football people who said, oh, no, we can't use him. He's not going to be a good fit for the team, a generational franchise quarterback. It was Stephan Ross. But here's my thing. And Ralph says, I think it's a wise move. Got to wait and see what happens. See, I wouldn't disagree with that. Except here's the thing. Why is it that only a couple days ago, we've been dealing with this for months. Why didn't Stephan Ross say a month ago? You know how long it takes to settle lawsuits, to get things done, especially with 22 different people suing you? Do you know what goes into that? Do you know what goes into that? So if he knew he wasn't going to make the trade, without the lawsuits being settled, which you can agree. You can say, hey, I don't want to make the trade unless he settles the lawsuits. I'm not disagreeing with that. But why wouldn't he let that be known a month ago so that Tua and his team could have gotten that rumor mill off their back and continued to play? And we could just say, we'll deal with that in the offseason. Why did he wait till 2 hours before? What was it 2 hours before that made him make the decision? And here's my thing about Ross now. If Ross is the main person involved in this decision, if it was Ross who made this decision at the last minute, then I think Ross has been involved in this stuff from the beginning. I wouldn't be surprised if when the draft was coming up 2 years ago, I would not be surprised if it was Ross who vetoed the evaluations and it was Ross who pushed so hard for Tua because of the marketing. Because all he cared about was what the fans were saying, what the media was saying, which was tank for Tua, tank for Tua, tank for Tua, tank for Tua. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one who did that. Because if his position was from the beginning that the lawsuits have to be settled, he should have known they weren't going to be settled by the trade deadline, and he should have squashed these rumors a month ago. But he waited to the last minute, and then there was conflicting reports. And help me out in the chat if you saw something. There was conflicting reports today. Some people said that the Texans finally granted permission to speak to Watson to Stephan Ross yesterday. They said Stephan Ross was granted permission, but another report said the Texans refused to grant the Dolphins permission to speak to Watson. And that was the last straw. Either way, you either don't want Deshaun Watson because of the criminal and civil investigations, which is fine. Then you squash it months ago. Say, I'm not interested in this guy till his civil and legal situation is cleared up. Or if you do want him because he's a 26-year-old generational talent, once in a lifetime chance, top 5, top 3 franchise quarterback that could change the trajectory of your entire franchise and organization, and you're gonna take a chance on him, then you do it. You take the chance. What you don't do is you don't wait until the last minute and have distractions all over your team and the beliefs seep in with your young quarterback Tua that you don't believe in him, that the bridge is burned, that it's done, and then piss off the Texans, piss off Deshaun Watson more than likely, piss off Tua, piss off Tua's agent, piss off the team, piss off the fans, and at the last second say, I don't want him anymore. I'm scared of the legal situation. Stephan Ross, I know everybody's, Big O's out here and everybody, don't talk about Stephan Ross. You can't do anything about Stephan Ross. He already handed the team off to his successor and he's the owner and he pays $1 million for, stadium upgrades. You can't talk about Stephan Ross. Well, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to talk about Stephan Ross because guess what? Even if the team goes on to lose and get their ass kicked every damn season, I'm still going to be a fan. I'm still going to talk to you guys. We're still going to get to talk. We're still going to watch the games even if they suck. I'll talk about Stephan Ross all I want. I don't care if he's not going to sell the team. I'm still going to talk about him. Let's face it. Every organization is only as good as their leadership. Every organization either succeeds or fails, and it starts at the top because the person at the top sets the culture. The person at the top sets expectations. The person at the top has a personality that permeates through all the different people that he hires to run his organization. And to go up to the last second and now blow this thing after all of the distractions and after everything we went through is an absolute joke. It's just a joke. And here's what I'm scared of, right? What do these teams know that we don't know? Why were they even in discussions? Why is Houston? If Houston knows that he's going down in flames legally, then Houston would try to get rid of him as soon as they could and get as much as they could. Houston must have some indication that he's going to be all right in the long run. So they're banking on the fact that, okay, Miami, you don't want to give us what we want? You don't want to make the trade? We'll wait. And here's what's going to, I already know, and I almost, in a weird masochistic way, it sounds so twisted, guys, and forgive me, but this is the point that this organization, that this team has pushed me to. This is the point they've pushed me to. That I almost hope, in a sick, twisted way, I almost hope that the season ends, that we try to get Deshaun Watson and he settles all his legal stuff and he's exonerated. And then I hope some awesome team like Green Bay or somebody comes calling for him and he says, you know what, Miami, thanks but no thanks. Your owner is a doofus. Your owner is a clown. You had your chance. I'm out. I hope he goes to Green Bay or somebody and he wins 3 Super Bowl rings and Miami sits in purgatory again. Because you know what else? You know what else I don't get about this owner? Let's say the owner was looking out for the best interest of the franchise and the best interest of the fans. Let's say he was like, you know what? The reason I'm not going to bring on Deshaun Watson, the reason I'm not, is because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what his legal situation is. I'm going to do the best thing for the franchise. I'm not going to give away all these draft picks for somebody who I don't know what's going to happen. That's fine. But then if you're going to do that, which he's not going to do, then you know what? Fire the coach, fire the GM, and then bring somebody in. Bring somebody in who's going to actually make the right moves. You don't want to give away draft picks? You think Chris Greer's going to use those draft picks to make any good picks? No. So what's the point of holding them? If you're not going to get Watson, then at least fire Greer, fire Flores, and bring in somebody who actually knows how to use draft picks, who actually knows how to hire a coach, who actually knows how to coach up a quarterback, who actually knows how to analyze a quarterback and bring the right one in for what you're trying to do. But here's why Ross is the worst. Here's why he destroyed our dreams even more. He's not going to get rid of Greer. He's not gonna get rid of Flores. Not only is he not trading for Watson, so now we're in purgatory the rest of the year. It's just Tua and this offense fumbling snaps into each other's knees and skipping around the field, looking like crap, going 3 and out. Not only do we have the rest of this season to look for with that type of nonsense on the field, but next year, we're coming back with the same squad, guys, the same regime, the same GM, the same head coach, and the same quarterback, and we're going to do it again. We got to wait another year and go through this another year until he finally fires these guys and goes back to square one, and then we're going to have some regime. They're not going to keep Tua. They're not going to trade for Watson. The new regime is going to go out and draft their guy, right? Because they always want to go get their quarterback. We want to get our guy. Look at the Jets. They had to get their guy. Zach Wilson sucks. Like, we're going to go get their guy, and we got to hope that and it's funny because they'll get their guy whether the draft class sucks or not. So if the draft class that year, the top 2 quarterback is as good as a top 30 quarterback 2 years from then, they're still going to draft that quarterback, and that's their guy, and they're going to make a run. And then in 3 years, if that doesn't work, we go back to square one again. So he's not even, I don't want Watson. Okay, that's fine. If you don't want Watson, then what are you going to do? Because this mess isn't doing anything for anybody. So you're going to come out an hour before the trade deadline? Oh, I don't want Watson. Well, what do you want? What do you want, Ross? It's too much of a risk for you? I think it's too much of a risk for you to run with Chris Greer into another draft and give away these draft picks. Do you realize we're going to have a top 3 to top 5 draft pick this year and we don't even have it? So you're fine with that risk. You're fine with Flores running this thing into the ground. You're fine with Tua getting hurt again, destroying his trade value and his confidence again. You're fine with Greer making more terrible draft picks. But you don't want to take a risk on a top 5 generational QB. And by the way, smash the like button, please. Hit subscribe, please. I love talking to all you guys. I love how many subscribers, people just jumping on ship. I love the conversation. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. Share this stream if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. Phin-Addict Fury with Larry K. And I agree. Web Dev Dude says over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Yes, that is this organization, and that's definitely this organization under Stephan Ross. How, I wonder, did Greer get this to a point where the trade was ready to go through? Did he get it to a point where the trade was going to happen and then Ross at the last second said no? Or was Ross the whole time like, I don't know, I want to talk to him, I don't know. What was the case? What happened with Ross leading up to this? Ross just makes the final decision with two hours to go, no Watson. We're not getting Watson. You asking for an update? Jolie, are you asking for an update on Watson? Because the update on Watson it's all over the press, it's all over Twitter. We're not doing it. We're not getting Watson. Stephan Ross, once again, just to reiterate the news if you're tuning in recently, Stephan Ross has made the decision in the 11th hour that we will not trade for Deshaun Watson. It was his decision based on the court cases. And here's what really hurts, right? Because what was the main reason we were so optimistic a couple years ago, right? Part of it was, well, we have this new coach, it's new blood, and we're going to, strip it down to the studs, and we're going to have a lot of draft picks. And, we're going to have these draft picks. That was part of the reason for the optimism. We can build through the draft. We're going to have so many first-round and second-round picks. That we're going to build something competitive. That was part of the reason for the optimism. But what was the main reason? And now I'm seeing Tim Bates. Larry, did you see the players come out of the locker room for introductions and go straight to the bench in the Falcons game? Flo has lost this team. I agree. Flo has lost this team, and I'm going to get to Flo in a second. But let's talk about why were we so optimistic when we started this rebuild? Well, we were so optimistic when we started this rebuild, partly because we were going to have all these draft picks. But number one reason we were optimistic was we haven't had a franchise quarterback in several decades. Now, look, when I say franchise quarterback, this is something I want everybody to understand. I'm not a Tua hater. I'm not someone who thinks Tua, has had all the opportunities or he had a great line. I know and I'm well aware of the issues with this team and why Tua was put in a position for failure in a lot of ways. He was thrust into the situation last year when Fitzpatrick was the starter. The team didn't respond well. He wasn't ready with the playbook. The line was not good this year. There's too many rookies. There's all kinds of reasons why Tua hasn't really gotten a fair shake. I'm not a Tua hater. But I will say this. My biggest issue with Tua, and I've said it on other videos, and I'll say it again, and this goes into why we were so optimistic and why we're so let down. We thought we were going to get a franchise quarterback. And this is why people have a problem or an issue with Tua that Tuaneers need to understand. We're not hating Tua. We're not just out to get him. We knew full well that in order to succeed in this league, especially with our team that has been mired in futility for 2 decades, we knew the only way to actually turn it around, the only way to turn this thing around was to get a once-in-a-lifetime, generational, top 5, game-changing quarterback. I'm not talking about a guy who needs 5 years to develop with the perfect offensive line, the perfect offensive scheme, the perfect set of coaches, an amazing defense, and really talented receivers that can then be a cog in the wheel and get you to a championship. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I am saying you need a guy like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Tom Brady, who elevates all the players around him. So even if the players around him aren't amazing, he's going to make them look better because he's that good of a quarterback. If a play breaks down, he's going to run outside the pocket, he's going to dodge two guys, and he's going to deliver a bomb down the field for a huge play in a critical game. That's the kind of quarterback we needed. That's a franchise-changing, organizational-changing, trajectory-altering quarterback. When the hype was on for Tua, when it was tank for Tua, tank for Tua, tank for Tua, the reason people were so excited about tank for Tua was because the idea was not that Tua was going to come in and need 5 years and a perfect offensive line to become and develop into somebody good. That wasn't what people were thinking. They're backtracking now. They weren't thinking that. They were saying Tua was a once-in-a-lifetime, generational, franchise-altering quarterback. We had to get him because he was the best quarterback in a generation. In a generation. So people were excited. But when we went out and we got Tua, I'll tell you, because everybody's out there like, you would have been mad if we got Herbert. I got the text messages to prove it. And I'm waiting. I'm going to put them up on the screen, one of these videos. I have the text messages on draft night with my father who said they got Tua, and I said, And he said, would you have taken Herbert? And I said, yeah, I would have. Not because I'm a hater, but because it seemed like the hype was so big. But when I went back and looked at the games, he was on an Alabama team that was so dominant. Like, that's exactly, and you know what's funny? The Alabama stuff is exactly what the Tuaneers now are saying he needs. They're like, he needs great receivers. He needs great O-line. He needs great. They want him to have what he had in Alabama. He needs an Alabama to succeed. And I don't just mean an Alabama with everything solid. I mean Alabama, a team that goes out and every other team is so much worse than them that it's easy to just throw the ball everywhere. That's never going to happen in the NFL. That's never going to happen in the NFL. That's never going to happen in the NFL. And that's what you're seeing with Tua. When I went back and watched Tua and when I read about Tua, and I saw his game highlights and I did research on Tua before that draft, one thing I saw was in the biggest games, even the first game that won him all the hype, when he won the championship, he still threw picks. And one of his throws was still a throw to somebody who made a play after that. I'm not taking it away from him, but in the biggest games, on the biggest stages against the most stout defenses, against teams that were capable of competing with Alabama, Tua shrunk in those moments. He shrunk in those moments in college. The marketing for Tua was huge. The marketing for Tua, tank for Tua, and that's what happens. No, Justin Herbert, unfortunately, no Deshaun Watson trade. The latest reports, this is a consensus from all the reputable journalists on the subject, is that Stephan Ross came out within the last 2 hours and he made the final decision that we would not be trading for Deshaun Watson before the trade deadline. So, I'm not hating on Tua. I think he's a good kid. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. I've said it. I said it when I was on TD Finn's Talk. I'll say it again. I think he's a top 15 quarterback in the league. But he's not a franchise-changing, once-in-a-generation quarterback the way that you guys who are hyping him with the tank for Tua made him out to be. And those of us who are more pessimistic about the future of the team and a little more critical of his play are the ones who, most of us, we're criticized as, oh, you really wanted him before, now you're turning your back. That's not it. We were always a little bit critical of the pick. We always had our doubts. Always. Now we're just saying, we told you there was doubts. He wasn't going to come in and set the world on fire. And Tim Bates says, Larry, we must be honest, though. The Chargers went out in free agency and got offensive linemen. Herbert would be a disaster here in Miami right now. That's a fair point. But when you look at the body of work, the physical tools, the plays he makes, the ceiling is still much higher for Herbert. And this is what happened with Josh Allen, right? People want to bring up Josh Allen's stats his first couple years and say, look, his stats were worse or the same as Tua's. Therefore, Josh Allen, Tua can be good too. Well, you're missing the point, right? This is the other big thing with Tua that people have to realize, right? When we're talking about a franchise changer, a once-in-a-generation quarterback. Tua is a smaller guy, and I'm not saying that to diss him. Tua is a smaller guy who has more limited physical tools. So the marketing for him, the idea, the reason why Tua was going to be so good was, despite the physical tools, he was already the polished product, right? He knew how to read defenses. He was really, really accurate. He threw a very, very accurate high-velocity ball into tight windows that was going to enable receivers to get run after the catch, yards after the catch, all those things. Because his physical ceiling is limited, a guy like Josh Allen or a guy like Justin Herbert, they know he may never develop into a great polished quarterback as far as making reads and accuracy. But we do know that a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen has a high physical ceiling, so there's potential. He's so physically talented that once we teach him, he could rise above. Tua is maxed out physically already, and he already has one hip replacement. Tua is maxed out already physically. So you counted on him being the polished product as far as making reads and accuracy and all of those things. If he doesn't have those things, there's not as much of a ceiling for him to develop into because his physical tools are limited. Whereas a Herbert or a Josh Allen, those guys have so many physical tools that they could develop. And that's the problem. And I don't want to sit here, because Roney says, anybody got a good deal on a time machine? I don't want to sit here forever and talk about Tua and what we should have done and what we could have done. But at the end of the day, we could have righted that ship. We had a chance. Stephan Ross had a chance to go out and get a top 5 generational talent, franchise-changing quarterback in Deshaun Watson, and he, at the last minute, declined to do that. Again, that's fine if you want to be smart and patient because of Deshaun Watson's legal issues. That's fine. But then say that months ago so we could get a head start on either developing Tua or looking at a contingency plan, or at least not revealed our hand. Now, Tua knows we don't want him. His agent knows we don't want him. The fans know we don't want him. Watson knows we kind of wanted him. Houston knows we want him. We let the cat out of the bag just to not even do it at the last minute. And again, I'm disturbed. I'm disturbed that so many reputable journalists have said that Stephan Ross was the one who made the call. I want more details, because I thought Stephan Ross said that he was done meddling, that it was the football people who were going to make decisions. If you hire Chris Grier, unless you fire him, then you give him the power he needs until he's fired. I want to know, was Ross the main negotiator this entire time? I want to know. Did Grier get the deal done and we were hyped that we were going to get him in and all the players were hyped, and then Ross stepped in at the last minute because he was looking at the newspaper or whatever and said, no, I don't want him at the last minute? What did Ross have to do with it? Because it seems like no matter what, whenever Stephan Ross is involved with something, it turns out to be a disaster. Remember when he was flying across the country trying to get Jim Harbaugh when we had Tony Sparano as coach? And then when you do that, then you have to say, you know what, Tony, the cat's out of the bag. I want to move on from you. Finish out the year or leave now. I'll put an interim coach. I'm coach hunting at the end of the year. No, he didn't get Harbaugh. The cat got out of the bag. He looked stupid. Sparano looked stupid. The players knew Sparano was done, so he undermined Sparano. And then he gave Sparano an extension. He gave him an extension, so we had to wait a whole nother year to start over again on another 3-year cycle. That's the way Stephan Ross operates. So now he's gone out and allowed these Watson rumors to fester, and the team to think, and everybody to think that Watson was going to come in. So you know what that did? That undermined Tua. Players that already are on the fence about Tua or don't like Tua, or, I don't know what Mike Gesicki thinks. I'm not going to put words in Mike Gesicki's mouth. I don't know what he thinks. I'm not pretending I know what any of these players think, and I'm not pretending I have inside info, because I don't. This is just my opinion. But a guy like Mike Gesicki, who's beside himself because the team can't even get lined up properly, who's trying to bring the energy, who wants to win, a guy like that keeps hearing for months that we're going to have a Watson and other guys in the team, and now all of a sudden they're like, no, never mind Watson. Actually, just go back to being happy with Tua. Because we're just sticking with Tua now. We're just going to be with Tua now. You think players are going to go back and be like, oh, all right. I mean, that's not how it works. It's like, you got a deal on a mansion across the street, and you've been planning on moving in there for 5 months, and then they just say, oh, no, the mansion's over. You just stay in your apartment. It's fine. Stay in your apartment. Be happy with it. You can't just go back to that. Your whole mind changes as you get used to anticipating what's going to happen. Is that true, Richard? Can somebody confirm that? Saying we got Richard Sherman? Please tell me it's not. Please, I mean, please tell me it's not. But, again, I don't. If you're Watson, what if a better team comes calling in the offseason? What if you settle your stuff and a better team comes calling in the offseason? What if it's a little bit of a mess? You apologize. It is what it is. You get a year's suspension or 8-game suspension, but then you play for some other team for the next 10 years. And here's the other thing with our limitations. Now, look, Flores, again, I don't know if Tua has all those I think Tua has those physical limitations. What about these other players? We all say that these players are all a bust. Chris Greer can't draft. All our draft picks are terrible. How do we know that they're just not playing well and they're not developing because our coaching staff is no good? How come everybody else who gets drafted, we say, oh, the reason these two players got drafted in the same round, but the guy Buffalo picked is amazing. He's setting the world on fire. And the guy the Dolphins picked, he's a bust. Well, how do we know it's not just because of coaching? How do we know the guy in Buffalo doesn't look great because his coaches are better? And the guy in Miami doesn't look terrible because his coaches stink? How do we know that's not the reason? I don't even know if these draft picks stink or not. I really don't. I don't know if these draft picks stink or not because our coaching staff is so bad. You get a guy like Brian Flores. First he throws to it. And here's the other thing that I think, there were some reports, and again, I don't have any inside info. I don't want to speculate, but this is just me guessing. It seems like, and there was at least one report out there, I forget who wrote it, that, there might be an issue with the relationship between Tua and Flores. There might be an issue with that relationship. And I wouldn't put it past. I would not take that fact lightly because it seems like last year he threw Tua in, but as soon as Tua didn't produce, he was quick to yank Tua and throw Fitzpatrick in as if he didn't trust Tua. He went all in on Fitzpatrick last year, even though he had just drafted somebody who was supposed to be a franchise-changing quarterback, by hiring Chan Gailey, who was more the hire for Fitzpatrick. It seemed like he really wasn't interested in the whole Tua thing, and now this year he throws him into a terrible situation. Terrible situation. Absolutely terrible situation with a new offensive coordinator who's never done it before. He doesn't even have all the power. He's got a co-offensive coordinators. He gets rid of all the veterans on the offensive line. Like, Flores totally pulled the rug out from under Tua, too. Flores pulled the rug out from under this entire franchise. He's just been his decisions have been terrible. And you could say all you want, oh, Greer traded the veterans away. But there's no way that he's not asking the coach, how'd this rookie do? How'd this second-year player do? Can I trade this guy or give up this guy? I'm sure he didn't just totally destroy every veteran player on the roster without Flores being in on it. And this is, again, the problem with the way that they run their franchise. They think, oh, every time a player gets good, we're going to ship him out for draft picks. and we're going to have cap space we never use, and we're just going to have all these young guys. That's like you know what it is? It's an exaggeration and a flawed interpretation of the New England philosophy, which it seems like everything we do, and all these teams trying to hire these ex-New England coaches and say, we're going to do the Patriots way, the Patriots way, the Patriots way. What even is the Patriots way? Because Tom Brady left New England, and I'll tell you, I couldn't, I wanted to hate on Tom Brady as much as I could. I'm a Dolphins fan. I was saying, as soon as Tom Brady leaves, Tom Brady's going to suck, and the Patriots are still going to be good because it's all Belichick. It's not Brady. He's a crybaby. Guess what? Brady left, and he won the Super Bowl, and they're still pretty good. I know he didn't have a good game this week. He's getting old. But the Patriots are not good without him. They struggle without him. So the Patriot way, maybe it was all nonsense to begin with. What'd they have? A franchise-changing generational quarterback. So they hire these New England guys, and they want to do it the way New England does it. New England would get a guy, but New England would get one player at like peak value who they knew was going to decline in the next couple years, and they would bite the bullet for the 1 year. They would trade him and get draft picks, and then they would actually make the most of those draft picks. This team they got a twisted, perverted interpretation of that New England philosophy. They're not taking the one peak player, like Seymour, and trading him once in a lifetime at the peak value. They're just taking anybody who's a little bit older, who has any value, and shipping them off for draft picks after 1 or 2 years, or instead of ever renewing their contracts, except for X, who's been a disappointment this year, by the way. When they're ready for a new contract, they just ship them away. They already drafted Gesicki's replacement, even though the guy hasn't seen the field. Gesicki's like one of the only Dolphins that cares about the Dolphins, that cares about the city of Miami, that brings energy every game, that wants to win. He's one of the few that wants to win. And they're drafting his replacement, basically, and haven't talked to him much about renewing his contract. Because that's the twisted, perverse philosophy of this regime. They think they're New England on steroids, and they're not even close. It's a joke. And I agree. Joe, see, that's what I'm saying. Joe says, what coach, offensive coordinator will come here, or defensive coordinator will come here with Flores getting the boot? Nobody wants a coordinator job. It's a head coach who brings them with him. That is a great point, Joe, and that's my problem. Not only did Ross say we're not getting Watson, we're not giving you hope for the future, but the reports are he's not ready to move on from Greer and Flores. So Flores is going to be on the hot seat. He's probably got 1 more year max. Tua is on the hot seat. Tua might want to leave. He might get traded, all these things. What coach? What good offensive coordinator? What good quarterbacks coach? What reputable assistant coach is going to want to come in to a situation as screwed up as that? Who's going to want to coach a quarterback who may be on his way out, who the organization doesn't believe in? Who's going to want to work for a head coach who's on his way out, who notoriously, it seems like, doesn't get along with people? Who are we going to be able to get? And again, I could respect the decision if they made it weeks ago. They knew weeks ago whether he was going to be able to settle it or not. They knew. They knew he was going to be able to settle it or not. So why didn't they just do this a month ago and let us move on and let the team stay together with Tua as their quarterback? Why would you wait till the last minute? And I have a feeling it's some nonsense between 2 billionaire owners who want to get into a pissing match about who's going to give up more and who's boss and who's who and who really runs this thing. And who suffers? We suffer. The fans. And who suffers? The players suffer. That's who suffers. The cities suffer. Not these guys. And all this fanfare Stephan Ross gets, he's a real estate developer. I live in New Jersey. I'm looking at New York City right now. He built Hudson Yards. I've been in Hudson Yards. Let me tell you, it's big. It's got a bunch of fanfare. It's new and shiny. But inside, they can't lease the thing. It's too overpriced for a lot of, some people in there that can't lease many of the apartments. It's empty, and a lot of the design is cliche and tired and played out. That reminds me a lot like the Miami Dolphins. He wants an orange carpet. He wanted tank for Tua. He wants all the glitzy things. He wants to build a stadium canopy so he could have the Super Bowl, but his team is not going to be in the Super Bowl. It's with him, it's always glitz and glamour and image over substance and winning. Remember when he brought in Tannenbaum? And this is the thing with some fans. And I have a feeling. I have a serious feeling that the bulk of my listeners, because if you're listening to me, you got to be a certain caliber of fan. You got to be a certain caliber of thinker to listen to me. So I think most of you would agree, and most of you probably shared my hesitation. Even back, do you remember when we brought in Mike Tannenbaum to this organization? The guy who drove the Jets into the ground. If you are an observant NFL fan, you knew that Mike Tannenbaum drove the Jets into the ground because he was always focused on the big splash. Remember back, who was it? Was it Joey Porter? Was it one of those guys that back then when the Jets were getting all hyped because they made all these big signings, he said, well, they're the champs of the spring, I guess, the champs of spring training. It doesn't mean anything. And then the Jets sucked, right? When we brought in Tannenbaum, I bet most of you were like me. The first thing he did is he went after Sue. He went after Ndamukong Suh. Remember that? Like it was the biggest, just because Sue was the biggest free agent on the market, right? And it would get the headlines during the free agency offseason period. Oh, the Dolphins signed Sue. First thing Tannenbaum does is go and get Sue. And Stephan Ross is out there, we're going to get Sue. And you know Stephan Ross is sitting there like just waiting for the press, just waiting for the big splash. That's all he cares about. I bet most of you, because you're my listeners, at that time were sitting there going, okay, I mean, he's a really good player, but is he going to win us a Super Bowl? I mean, he's a down interior defensive lineman. I bet most of you were sitting there like, I mean, it's a big splash, but do we need to spend all our money there? We got next. Thank you. I appreciate the subscription, my brother. Everybody else, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button. Please, please, please do me that solid. Click the subscribe button. I got content all the time for you guys, and if you like what I'm saying, we could vibe together on these. What else do we have except vibing in our community as Dolphins, because this franchise has let us down so many times. So many times. Brian C. Because this is Brian C. You are bringing out exactly what the problem is. I just explained the issue, right? Watson is a once-in-a-lifetime generational quarterback, number one. Number two, the bridge is burned with Tua here. Tua is not going to be the type of quarterback that's going to will this organization to success, because this organization is not built to have a role-playing, game-managing quarterback take them to the next level. So while I support Tua, and I hope he comes out and sets the world on fire and proves me wrong, because I'm a Dolphins fan, and if that happens, we win. I'm just being objective and realistic right now. I wanted Watson because he's a once-in-a-lifetime generational top 5 quarterback. And at this juncture, Tua is not that guy. Tua is not that guy. But if we weren't going to get Watson anyway, then there was no need to dangle it in front of us and to undermine Tua. We had to make the best out of what we had, and we didn't do that because we dangled it in front of us. Like I said, it's like having a job you're happy with your income. You don't know anything better than that because you're used to it. And then somebody brings you into a new job for 3 months with double the pay, gives you a nice house, a mansion, everything, and your entire lifestyle changes, and your entire outlook and perspective changes, and then they just pull it out, take the job away from you and say, oh, go back, be happy with your regular job. You were happy before, why aren't you happy now? Because when you show them the grass that's greener on the other side, it undermines them going back. So Watson is an upgrade over Tua, period. He's an upgrade over Tua. But if we were never going to get Watson and we weren't involved in the Watson hunt and we weren't going to do it until the lawsuits were settled, then we should have said that months ago, so that Tua could have confidence. We would never have it in our head. They wouldn't have showed us the greener grass. We would have had to just rock with Tua and be satisfied. That would change the entire perception and perspective that us fans had. And that would change the entire perspective and perception the team had. And the entire perception and perspective that Tua Tagovailoa had. It would have changed everything. So when I'm trying to point out the problems with Ross, that's what I mean, too, the glitz and the glamour. He thinks he's a big dog because he stepped in at the last minute. We're not doing it. All right, Ross, you're so smart. Just like when you signed Sue. Just like when you... I guarantee you he pushed for Tua. I mean, I'm not even a little bit unsure. There was definitely somebody in that organization. I don't care if it was a regional scout. I don't care if it was an intern. Somebody in there said, well, what about this Herbert guy? It was discussed. And somebody said, or a few people said, no, we're going with Tua. And I have no doubt. I don't even have a tiny little bit of doubt that Stephan Ross was one of the guys saying Tua. Why? Not because he looked at every piece of film and Stephan Ross is a football guru and he knows what good quarterback play looks like. No. Because Stephan Ross knew generally about the mass hysteria, the tank for Tua, and all of that nonsense. I got to go to a Jets-Dolphins game. You think I'm happy about it? I got to go there and they might beat us. Because they look better than us. That's how bad we are right now. And you guys, if you're a Dolphins fan, people have said in this chat. We've said in this chat over and over again. I've seen you guys say it. You've said it. You guys have said in this chat, didn't you expect this? Didn't you just know that this was going to happen? Wasn't this expected? And I say, you know what? Sadly, yes. So then if we're going to play that game, wouldn't you guys agree that despite what Watson says, for some strange reason he wants to be a Dolphin, despite that we're still open to having discussions in the offseason, blah, 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 don't you just know? Don't you just know? Wouldn't it be the most Dolphins thing ever? Don't you just know Watson's going to deal with his legal issues and he's going to be all right and then he's going to go to a different team? Don't you just know that in the offseason it's not going to work out for us? You know it. You know we're not going to figure it. We're not going to get him. You just know it. We're not. And somebody else is, and he's going to go on. He's probably going to have a good career. He's probably going to have a good career, just like Drew Brees. He's probably going to go out and have a good career. And we're going to be sitting here holding the bag because Stephan Ross wanted to be a big dog at the last minute, the 11th hour, say, I'm not doing it. He's not settling his lawsuits. Probably because he read some newspaper article saying he shouldn't do it because of this or that. Not because he looked at the football wager. I bet you Chris Greer had a deal that made sense. I bet you he had a deal where, like, the picks we were giving up, we weren't going to draft anybody great anyway, where the price wasn't way too high, where it was made sense for where we are, for where the leverage is. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was on the phone with Casario. Hey, we're going to do this. All right, Steve, look, this is the deal. 3 first-rounders, a third next year, and a third in 2 years, and this such and such player. What are we doing? Make the choice finally, Steve. And Steve was like, is he settling the lawsuits? Steve, no, we told you it's going to take a long time to settle. It's not going to, no, we're not doing it. No, I will not do that. Guy is just, he's can't take him. And I know I saw it. Tua said he goes with the play call. Now, look, I think, to be fair to Tua, that quote gets taken out of context a little bit, right? I mean, I think what Tua said when they were like, do you basically improvise? Do you change the play? I mean, are you going to do something different than what's presented to you to make a play happen? Which, again, goes back to my point. He's not the guy that's going to change a whole play by himself. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Russell Wilson a few years ago. He's not those guys. But all he said was, look, I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm going to take what's presented. If they call a run, I'm going to run a run. If they call a pass, I'm going to throw a pass. If the defense shows me this look, I'm going to go here. If a defense gives me this, I'm going to go there. He was just saying, I'm not a hero. I'm just trying to run what's given to me. Is there anything wrong with that from a overall philosophical standpoint? Is he saying, I don't want to be a hero, I don't want to win? No, he's not saying that. But is it showing you that he's more of a game-managing quarterback, which is not what we need right now, especially with the composition of this team? Is he showing you that he's a game manager? Yeah. Now, look at somebody like Josh Allen. Here's why Josh Allen's important. People can say all they want. Oh, everybody looks bad against the Bills. I heard it the other day. Every quarterback who plays the Bills looks bad. So you can't hold it against Tua that he looks bad against the Bills because everybody does. Well, here's the thing. We're going to need to beat the Bills, okay? They're in our division. If we want to be a Super Bowl contender like Greer and Ross and Flores told us they wanted to be, If we want to be a championship contender, we are going to have to find a way to beat the Bills. So I don't care if every other quarterback in the NFL looks bad against the Bills. We can't be one of those teams. Let's face it, Tom Brady was the best quarterback in the NFL for a very long time. But you know what he said the other night on Monday Night Football with Eli and Peyton? He said the Miami Dolphins were the toughest team I had to play. I always had the most trouble with the Miami Dolphins defense, and Brady's record in Miami was not really good. So even in his prime, we still were built to beat Brady. We just never were good enough in every other facet to get to a crack at him in the playoffs. But we were built to beat him, even though most other teams weren't. If we want to win anything, we got to be built to beat the Bills. So I don't care if every quarterback looks bad against them. If Tua looks bad against them too, that's a problem. But here's the other thing. Tua looked pretty good in 2 games this year, and they were against terrible teams. Atlanta, Jacksonville, teams that have bad defenses, he looked good against. And then when he played a team that's a good team like the Bills, he struggled. Now, I'm not saying that's all we need to know. He'll have other middling teams. We'll see him against the Jets. We'll see him against the Giants. We'll see him against some other more moderate teams. We'll see him against the Patriots again. We'll see him. And he'll have a chance to show what he can do. But here's my thing. When we played the Bills, Tua is saying, I don't want to be a hero. I'm not a hero. I do what they tell me. I don't go outside of that. I don't go above and beyond. I don't improvise. I do what the coaches tell me. I do what the defense gives me. That's the kind of player I am. Fine. Now, when you watch us play Buffalo, ask yourself this. What kind of player is Josh Allen? Would Josh Allen say that if asked in an interview? Does Josh Allen play or carry himself like a player who doesn't want to be a hero? We could hate Josh Allen's attitude all we want, and we should and we will because he's a rival. But when Josh Allen plays football, he will carry that ball and run over guys and stiff arm them and knock them down and then get up and throw the ball and talk shit in their face. Then he'll go up, drop back, read this, read that, scramble, throw a guy off him, find an improvised receiver, play playground ball with Diggs, and launch it into the end zone. That's the type of player that elevates a team. That's the type of player you need if you want to beat a team like the Bills. You know why? Because if you run your dink and dunk offense all the way down the field, and you go down the field and you score, and then you hold them a little bit, and then you score, like eventually a team like Buffalo is going to throw a bomb. They're going to have at least one big play. Probably 2 big plays. Something like that. They're going to have big plays, and you're going to be down 2 touchdowns. And you're going to need to compensate for it. So the only way you can keep up with teams like that and win those games is if you have the potential to have a huge play. And right now, and with quarterback and his style of play, and with the way our team is constructed, we don't have a team or an offense that's capable of those big plays. So we can't challenge the best teams in the NFL, and then we can't be championship or really even playoff contenders. So what are we doing if we're not doing that? And you could say Woodley, and look, Woodley, yeah, exactly. Richard, great point. I was just going to say, Woodley had Shula, and they still had those Shula teams that had, a good all-around team. It's so sad that Marino, and we forget, we say Marino didn't have a defensive running game, and he didn't. But he was still they were still good teams. And then he did have a defense under Jimmy Johnson. And they still had good teams. It was just there was always somebody in the way. Or always some stupid game where we lost, like the Chargers in the 94 season. Where we lose in overtime. Like, for what reason? Then they lose to San Fran in the Super Bowl. Miami loses to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game in 85 after they were the only team to beat the Bears. It was always something stupid with Marino, like it wasn't all his fault. It was always something stupid with the team, but you couldn't even say the team was weak. It was still an all-around pretty good team. We were still contenders. You can't say, oh, Tua, we're going to get to the Super Bowl with Tua because we did it with Woodley. And let's face it, Tua might even be better than Woodley, but he doesn't have the supporting cast. That's the thing. And it's also a different league, right? It's not even all the fault of, the way we construct. It's just a different league. Back in the day, teams that were constructed, who's a good example of this? The Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are built like an old school football team. Those are the type of teams where you can have a quarterback who's more of a game manager like Ryan Tannehill is. We know that well. But he can make the throws when needed. Tannehill can make the throws when needed, and Tannehill could run when needed too. And he's a tough kid. He didn't get hurt till a while into his career. But they're constructed on a dominant running game. They're tough in the trenches. They have a good defense. All right? That's an old school team. But it's getting harder and harder and harder to win with those old school teams in today's league, the way the rules are these days. So the Titans may be up there every year, but how many Super Bowls have they gotten into since they've shifted to this old school team? None. And I wish them the best. I hope that Tennessee gets there just because I like their style of play. But now with Henry being hurt, that's a huge blow. And it's hard to win with those old school teams because the modern NFL prides itself and encourages and is slanted in a way that big-time quarterbacks who run the offense, who create plays, who get big chunk plays, those teams have a better chance of succeeding in this league. Explosive offensive teams with explosive quarterbacks. They just do. So if you're going to say, well, we're going to be fine with Tua, we're going to be fine with Tua because he'll eventually be able to be a competent game manager. That's not a recipe for success in today's NFL. That's just not. And so I guess my main frustration, I share it with most of you guys. Again, it's Phin-Addict Fury. I'm furious. Smash the subscribe button if you haven't already. Here's why I'm furious. It's just you pull the rug out from under us, Ross, with 2 hours to go in the trade deadline. You crush the Deshaun Watson thing for the rest of the year. What are you going to give us to give us hope? What are you going to do to inspire some confidence that we have any semblance of hope or dreams or anything? Give us something to daydream about. Give us something to go to sleep and dream about in a crazy fantasy. Give us something to hallucinate and be delusional about. Give us something. You take away the Deshaun Watson thing, and then you don't give us any other thing. I mean, even make any moves. The team's 1-7. You don't make any moves. And you still got this coach. The coach hasn't even fired an assistant. They haven't cut anybody who hasn't been carrying their weight. They haven't been doing anything. Nothing. Raphael Courtwright. Tua is silver spooned, bro. Tua's silver spoon, bro. Players know. Tua didn't know playbook last year and again this year. Gesicki was trying to be QB. True story, Raphael. True story, Mr. Courtwright. True story. Tua came up in Alabama where everything was laid out on a silver platter. The competition was so lopsided that he was going to succeed no matter what. And when he got here, remember when he said he won a couple games because our defense was playing so well? And he said, to be honest, I thought it was going to be a lot harder. That didn't age very well, did it? And here's just two other quick things. And again, I'm not trying to disparage Tua as a human being, as an individual. He's an awesome human being by all accounts. But here's two other red flags. And look, I'm the kind of person where I try to read people, right? There's intangibles about people. And when you never meet a guy out, you never met before, and he's introduced to you by a friend, what do? You reach out, you shake his hand. And what's the two things you do as a man when you're meeting another man? You look for the firmness of the handshake, and you look for eye contact with the guy. Very early when you meet somebody, you could tell if they're a firm individual or not. And there's other things that go into that. Now, I'm not saying Tua doesn't do those things, but here's what I'm saying about Tua. There's other intangibles about Tua that kind of gave me pause. One was, there was a documentary about Tua. Was it before last season? I think it was before last season. There's a whole documentary about Tua that came out. It was like an hour long on ESPN. And I watched that documentary. And one of the things I saw that gave me pause, it just made me think about somebody long term, the character, those types of things, right? Tua said something really disturbing that no one really talked about. It was in the news a little bit, but he said that, if he threw an interception in high school or he messed up a play, his father would beat him. His father would take him home and beat him with a belt or a stick or something. And if he didn't do his main reason for performing well and for learning how to play left hand and everything, because his father would physically abuse him if he didn't do well. That gave me a red flag, because that tells me, one, the motivation from the beginning is a little off, right? If your motivation is your father's going to beat you rather than I love this game, I love winning, that's already like an odd dynamic and an odd, mentality to be in the NFL and to be successful. And I thought it was a little troubling. So now you see a kid who says, I'm not trying to be a hero, I just don't want to throw interceptions. Well, he's been conditioned to not want to throw interceptions. He's been conditioned to be afraid to make mistakes, rather than being conditioned to say, I loved football since I was 5 years old, I want to win, it's all I care about. It's a different mentality, and I wonder how much of him now is like that, like a Mike Gesicki who's so angry, who's so pumped. I wonder how much of that is because of the way Tua was trained to play football. And the other thing that gave me pause about Tua was when they were interviewing all the Bama receivers, all the Alabama receivers coming out of the draft class this year. Waddle and all of them. One of the weird things was every single one of those receivers, they posed that stupid question, which these receivers could have just said, hey, I love them both, don't ask me that question, how you guys going to put me in this spot, whatever. These guys would ask this question of every single person. They always asked, this guy's honking outside, I'm sorry, I don't know what he's honking about, it's probably the Dolphins and how much they suck right now, but they asked the question of every receiver coming out of Alabama. They said, who'd you prefer? Mac Jones? Who'd you prefer, Mac Jones or Tua Tagovailoa? They asked all of them. They said, Mac Jones or Tua Tagovailoa? Every one of the receivers, every one of those receivers coming out of Bama said, I love Tua, but Mac was my boy. I love Tua, but Mac Jones all day. Tua was cool, but Mac Jones. Why did every Alabama receiver say Mac Jones? Why? That was the other thing that gave me pause. Why, if he had the leadership quality, the intangible, the belief from his guys, then why would every single Alabama receiver coming out say Mac Jones was their guy? And they weren't together when they said it. This was separate interviews, but they all still said, Mac Jones is my guy. Mac Jones. That's another red flag. So you have two red flags with him. Third red flag is, I'm pretty sure Tua is the only non-rookie quarterback in the NFL right now who wasn't selected as a captain by his teammates. Even Zach Wilson, who I'm not saying Zach Wilson is good, because he's not, but even he as a rookie was elected a captain. Tua's in his second year, he's the quarterback, and he still wasn't elected a captain. And you're saying, they were trying to boost Mac Jones' draft stock. I don't know. I mean, this was fan nonsense. I don't think so. But, think what we want. I don't think so. I actually think they like Mac Jones better. And if you watch Mac Jones play versus Tua, it seems like Mac Jones has a little more moxie in the pocket. But that's just my perception. That's just me looking at it. I'm just saying, if you take all of these perspectives, all these red flags, all of these incidents, and add them up, there are warning signs. And you know what's frustrating is, I don't even want to, as a Miami Dolphins fan, and as a dude, just as a guy in this world, I don't want to be sitting here picking Tua Tagovailoa apart. I'm not enjoying it. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's productive. I don't think I'm doing anybody any favors or I'm being a great guy by doing it, but I'm just being an objective Miami Dolphins fan. And the only reason I'm put in a position, and the only reason you guys are put in a position to even feel like this, is because leadership and ownership on this team has put us in this position by dangling somebody like Deshaun Watson in front of our face for months and then saying at the last minute, no, we're just not doing it. And we don't have anything else to tell you. We don't have any other trades to make. We don't have anything else to offer you. Fact is, we're not doing it. Go back to Tua like nothing ever happened. Go back to this crap season with this crap regime and just deal with it. We'll revisit it. We can't even have anything happen on that front with Watson or any other quarterback until March. Do you guys know how long March is from now? Think about it. It's this November 2nd. The 2nd of November. We got to go through Thanksgiving, Christmas, that cold, dead January, February period, where even in Florida it's like moderate. Pretty nice in Florida around that time, I got to be honest. Maybe I'll be down there with you guys. A little bit moderate. All the way to March, boring March. Got to go all the way to St. Patty's Day before we could even talk about revisiting this. So in the meantime, what are we going to do? It's not like we could Cap, what up? It's not like we can start talking about things tomorrow, or we can start talking about draft picks, because are you confident that we're going to make the right draft picks? And it's not like we could be happy about our high draft pick because we traded it away. So the reason I'm sitting here talking so much about Tua is because Tua is the only person we have to talk about. Tua is the only person we have to talk about because he's the quarterback of the team, because Watson isn't. And there's nothing else that's giving us hope. And I want to go back to a comment from Tim Bates. Larry, I feel like a member in the crowd at a wedding, and everyone's awaiting the bride to walk down the aisle with the father, Ross. And she does not go, she's not going to go be with the groom because it's the Dolphins. Exactly. Ross is outside the door, and he said, you know what, get back in the car. You're not going to go meet the Dolphins today, Watson. Forget about it. Sophio Sports, Tua's dad really failed him. Maybe brought him up to be a great man, but making him throw left-handed was the dumbest possible thing I've ever heard. Parents always think they know best. And you know what? That's an interesting point, because throwing with your left hand certainly could be an interesting tool. It could be an interesting tool, and it could increase your draftability or your standout factor. But like you said, and like you pointed out, if the kid's not left-handed, how the hell are you going to beat him and make him left-handed and beat him, threatening that if he throws any interceptions or has any turnovers, you're going to bring out the belt? How is that doing him any favors? It's interesting. It's like he molded Tua, who was a smaller kid, because he's a smaller guy, limited physically, more prone to injury. Doesn't mean he can't go on and have a great high school career, a great college career. But I almost feel like he molded Tua into being this hyped up, left-handed draft pick with all these weird tactics while he was growing up. And then he gets an agent who's a high-powered agent who then has this marketing scheme, and he has this cool name, and he's got this cool presentation, so they can market him a certain way just to get him to the point where he's so hyped that he gets drafted so high. But it was all veneer. It was all outside veneer. It was propping up a house of cards. Because when Tua got to the NFL, he was injured quickly. And he was injured in D1 college, but he was injured again in the NFL. Missed a bunch of games already this year. And then he's not making mistakes, and he's not a game manager. I mean, he's not a game changer. He's a game manager. And I think a lot of these things that his father and his handlers put on him, the pressure they put on him, and the taxing on his body and his mind state that they put on him for so long, has kind of, emasculated him. And here's another fascinating thing. When you're a leader of men, you have to have a certain masculine edge that all leaders have. And I don't mean that in terms of toxic masculinity, or I'm just mean it in terms of you need that edge. That, like I said, that handshake, look you in the eye, man-to-man edge. And when you have a father who's constantly, emasculating you, and you are put in this position where you're not able to decide your own fate kind of thing, then when you get to the NFL around these big other grown professional dudes, it's hard for you to take control and take the reins because you really haven't been in control your whole life. You've been scared to throw turnovers. So are you going to be the Josh Allen and run out to the side and throw somebody down, throw somebody else down, tell Devontae Parker, you go down the field that way, look off the safety, and throw the ball and change it? Or are you too scared to do all that because you were always taught to play within the confines of what the defense gives you, because you better not turn the ball over because you're going to get hurt when you come home? It's bad. And to answer you, Cap, no, I don't think Tua is a field general. No. I don't think he's a bad quarterback going forward. I think he could be a top 15 quarterback. I've said that. But I don't think he's a field general. And that's an intangible that you absolutely need to be a perennial Super Bowl contender. I think Josh Allen is a field general. And Do I think the whole team is really this bad? No. No, I think the coaching is so bad, and the coaching decisions and the personnel decisions have been so bad that the team is playing the worst they could possibly play. I think there's a floor and a ceiling to every group of guys. There's a floor and a ceiling to every roster in the NFL. And we are playing at our absolute floor right now. And we have a ceiling that is much, much better than this. I think we have a ceiling that might even be a playoff contender, give or take, right on the cusp, a bubble playoff team. But getting rid of, and I said this on another video, but think about this. When they got rid of their veteran players, they got rid of a veteran player at every level of the defense. Like, they got rid of Bobby McCann in the secondary, who, again, guys, intangibles. You could look at him play all you want. Watch Bobby McCann's interviews last year. Watch how Bobby McCann interacted with the media. You could tell that he was a man's man. He was a leader. He was the quarterback of the secondary. He was the quarterback of the secondary. Bobby McCann was the quarterback of the secondary. He was a force in the locker room. They got rid of him. Then you have Van Noy. Van Noy was beside himself when Miami didn't bring him back. He was very agitated. And you saw a guy like Van Ginkel make game-changing, awesome plays, so you think, okay, well, Van Ginkel could take the spot of Van Noy, but you neglect to realize, and I neglected to realize, that Van Noy was a leader and probably a role model and probably almost like a quasi-virtual coach for Van Ginkel, which allowed Van Ginkel to play with no pressure and to make those game-changing plays. And no, I don't think any trades. If there were trades, somebody let me know, Tim. I don't think there were any trades at all, which is a joke. You didn't even trade. We didn't even get. Look, whatever. I mean, they didn't even try to do anything. I mean, I would have been upset if they traded away somebody like Parker, but it would have been a smart move. But I mean, they didn't even try. They're not trying to do anything. They're not trying to do anything. They literally said, we have a 1-7 team. We are drowning in media, in fan support, in the locker room. We are drowning. And what are we going to do to change the trajectory or change the perception at all? What can we do at this trade deadline? We have a huge opportunity to do something to try to change this sinking ship, to try to bail the water out of this sinking ship. You know what? No, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. I'm just going to let this ship keep sinking, and I'm not going to offer up or try anything. What a joke. What a joke this franchise is. And again, if you said 2 months ago we're not going to do anything, fine. But you waited till 2 hours before to say, never mind. We're not trade deadline. Trades now. This is a regular Tuesday. Go back to getting ready for Houston. Nah, we don't care. Trades, please. I mean, come on. What the heck are we doing? What are we doing? And yes, so we got rid of the veterans. So that's my point, going back to that. When you're a Van Ginkel and you got a guy like Van Noy there where you know if you get pulled from the game or they have a more important play or something, you have that guy, Van Noy, there as like your security blanket as a young player, that probably allowed Van Ginkel to let himself loose and to make some of those game-changing plays. Now he's probably playing scared too because it's all falling on his shoulders. There's no Van Noy there. And then you get Shaq Lawson, who's another vet on the defensive line, and they got rid of him. So every level of the defense, there was a veteran presence, and you got rid of all of them. Then you go to the offensive line, and wide receiver Ruggs killed somebody this morning. Very, very, very unfortunate. Tragic, and that's why you should never drive under the influence of anything. It can always lead to, you might not intend to hurt anybody, but you could shatter and ruin somebody's life. Shatter and ruin somebody's life because you chose to go drive under the influence. And it's a huge risk you take whenever you decide to do that. And that's a sad situation all around. And my heart goes out to the families of the victim and the victim themselves. It's terrible. Terrible. And Omar, look, we're still going to talk. It's sad, right? Because what can we talk about except how bad we are? But, we're still going to do whatever content we can do. which, is just talking about the games. And I guess we could slowly start to look towards the draft, even though we know we really can't draft very well. I mean, we're just going to have to do what we have to do as channels. And I mean, I only got on here because, look, I liked some of the commentary of guys like Doug Lee and TD Finn's Talk and other ones. And guys like, when Omar Kelly and Big O, I love them both. I listen to them. I check them. But when they're on the show, it's like sometimes I feel like they're just arguing over nothing and they're just slow to talk. I was like, I got to get on the mic and just talk directly to my fellow fans and just, bring this platform together. So, I mean, look, I'll try. If there's no content, that's one thing about me, guys. If there's something to talk about that you want to talk about that's actually happening, like today, not getting Deshaun Watson, which is a huge news story, I will come on live and I will talk to you live from this stream. If there's nothing to talk about, don't worry. You won't see me waste your time with meaningless stuff because, I'm only concerned with actually talking about things when there's something to talk about. But we'll have to just survive as channels talking about what's going on. How do they salvage this? The question in the chat, how do we salvage this? I'll tell you how I think. I don't think, and this would have been true even if we brought in Watson, although I think bringing in Watson would have changed the general, trajectory because we would have had like a wild card in the situation. I don't think, Omar, and if Watson gets convicted, do we call them geniuses? No, we don't. I mean, look, there was a price point. There was a price point there, and it was agreed to, and you have to think that the price point took into consideration the risk factor of him getting convicted or of him being totally exonerated. What's being reported, at least, is that Ross declined it just because he wanted Watson to settle all his lawsuits and he didn't settle them in time. Not that he was so worried about the potentiality of Watson being convicted. And another thing I have to, we don't know if the accusations are true or not. We don't know yet. We don't. We have no idea if they're true or not. What we do know is that he has not yet been indicted criminally. There's a criminal investigation, meaning they're looking into the complaints, but there has not been any formal criminal process that took place yet. So, who knows? Do we call them geniuses? No, because, and like I said, even if they were going to decide this is too risky, we're not going to trade for him, I said that's a perfectly acceptable position. That's perfectly fine, but they should have said it at the beginning of the year or as soon as the accusations came out so that we deaded all this speculation and so that we didn't, get ourselves to where we are now, where it's just this uproar and this undermining of the team and everything else. If we weren't going to trade for him because we were worried about the risk, we should have got it out of the way months ago. So even if he does wind up convicted, I'll still say this was mishandled because we shouldn't have let it get this far. Either way, it was mishandled. Tim's saying the Dolphins will go all in with the most cap space to get a O-line and free agency, then try to get Watson. That's very, very possible. Very possible. We got a Bills fan, Ricardo Green. Ricardo, if you don't mind, I would click to subscribe. Even though I'm a Finn's channel, you might like listening from time to time. As a Bills fan, I've been through this before. I seriously thought the AFC East would be the strongest division in the NFL. Hang in there, Finn's fans. Appreciate the kind words, and I'll tell you what. Even though we're a rival team from rival divisions, and even though, back in the 90s and 80s, you guys kept us out of a lot of potential championships, the truth is we've kind of been struggling together for 20-plus years. And, Buffalo's a cool city, man. It's up there in West New York. It's its own entity. And, I wish, and a lot of us wish we were in your position. We wish we were having the success that Buffalo's having. We wish we could build our team out of that. We wish that. So I'm happy for you in that sense, for you Bills fans, that at least you guys have something happy to root for, that your fall's going great. Maybe one day us Fins fans will be able to have that same experience. King Mill, what's up, my man? I shouted you out 2 videos ago. I hope you heard it. I really appreciate all the love you've been sending me, and I appreciate the love you sent me on the TD Fins Talk show I did with him a few episodes ago. I really appreciate that a lot, King Mill. Jonathan Taylor should be on this team right now. Noah Igbenogany was taken before Trayvon Diggs. No excuses for Greer's drafting. South Florida Sports. Agreed. Agreed. 100%, 150% agreed. And that's one of the problems we have right now, isn't it? What are we going to look forward to? What are we going to look forward to when we have no way to draft? We don't have a good drafter. Chris Greer can't draft. What are we looking forward to? That's why it's so disappointing we didn't get Watson, because Watson, you know who he is at least. Even with the risk of the investigations, at least you know he's a top 5 player. I don't trust anybody we draft to be a top 5 player. And Omar says in the audio, thanks, I appreciate the props on the audio. I'm actually a broadcaster. I do a podcast called Logic and Larry, and I'm a musician. So the intro you hear in my videos, that's actually me. I made that music. That's my beat. That's me rapping. That's my whole thing. So I'm an audio guy, so it was kind of easy for me to set up the mic and hop right into the Fins talk. And the Fins have been a big part of my life, for my whole life, really, pretty much. So it was easy to kind of just pivot to Fins talk, and I appreciate the love on the audio quality. And I got a question. Does Ross sell the team? No. See, that's why everybody yells at me for talking about Ross, because it's like, oh, you can't trade. You can't get rid of Ross. He's the owner. So why would you talk about him? Look, we can't. It's looking like he even designated somebody to take over the team in the event that he passes away or he retires. So there's really no getting out of Ross until he retires or leaves. And even when he does, it's one of his people. But we can still sit up here. We could still sit up here and talk all our nonsense. Hey, I'm down here, bro. I move silent like lasagna. I make big ziti on Thanksgiving. I make lasagna on Christmas. You better believe it. I'm in here in my Newark, New Jersey studio. So, But look, where was I on that point? I got a little sidetracked. But it's a tough situation where we are right now, and somebody had mentioned a while ago the question posed. Oh, we're talking about Ross. We can complain about him though. I mean, we're fans. We can complain about whatever we want. We can vent. We can talk. And I'm going to continue to. Here's one thing: Ross might not sell the team, but apparently he listens to the media, and apparently he listens to the fans to some extent, or at least the hype train. What we can do is keep criticizing him and calling out his bad decisions. We can keep calling out his bad decisions, and maybe eventually he'll make a good decision because he's sick of hearing us. That's one thing we can do. We can call out his bad decisions. We can call out his bad decisions. And we will continue to do it as fans. We will continue to do it as fans. And somebody asked a while ago, we have Johnny in here. I understand the business side of not getting Watson and waiting till the offseason, but the NFL is an entertainment business. And for the rest of the year, I will not be entertained, which sucks. Johnny, agreed. Agreed. I couldn't have said it better, Johnny. Great, well put. We want to be entertained. Like, even if you brought in Watson or something, give us something to see. Even if we know we're not going to win the Super Bowl and we're not going to make the playoffs, you still just want to see. You still want to see Watson. You want to see him play just for the entertainment of it. Like, oh, wow, let's see Deshaun Watson play. You just want to see something entertaining on a Sunday. I'm not depressed. As a lot of you, Josh Allen looked bad his first 2 years and has not looked elite, but he has not looked bad. The kid is one of the best QBs to evade pressure. They fixed this O-line and F. Look, I talked about the Josh Allen situation before. The comparison doesn't work as much because Josh Allen was a tall, big, physically gifted guy who didn't have all the tools as far as reading the field and making the right decisions and being accurate. You knew he had the physical tools, so once you taught him the mental aspect, Josh Allen was going to take off. He had a high ceiling. Tua doesn't have those physical tools. So helping him improve with the mental aspects is not going to get him as high as Josh Allen because he doesn't have the physical tools. But I do still think Tua will be a top 15 quarterback. I do think Tua will be a decent starting quarterback for some time in this league. I do think that. I do. Now, somebody asked a while ago if we would just go all in on free agency and just go out and sign a bunch of vets. Because, look, getting rid of the vets didn't work. We have all this cap space. I don't understand why we've been building this cap space forever. We've been building this cap space nonstop and building all these draft assets nonstop, yet we haven't done anything with them and we're just sitting on all this money. I would say, now I think it's not salvageable with this regime. I think that the relationship with the quarterback is no good. And again, what do I say a regime is? I say a regime is a GM, a head coach, and a quarterback. That's a regime. That's a regime. And this regime, I think, is not salvageable. I think this regime is done. But assuming Ross doesn't get rid of them, assuming he doesn't, the last thing they can try to do is they can try to use that cap space. They can try to use that free agent money and go out and sign veteran players that can immediately impact and improve the team. They can also go out and sign their own in Mike Gesicki, who's been busting his ass all year and has been a good, loyal Dolphin, and a member of the Miami community. They can go out and they could sign him with that money too, instead of drafting his replacement underhandedly and not talking to him much about contract extensions and being jerks to him. They can do that. And somebody said Tua was picked to sell jerseys. I agree. I think Ross had something to do with that too. I think the hype got to him. And I think, look, I think if this regime's going to stay, they got to do a couple things. Number one, they got to get an experienced coach somewhere in there. It should be the offensive coordinator. You should get I said this when we were looking for an offensive coordinator, and obviously Flores didn't get the memo from me. I said this. You've got to bring in a big dog offensive coordinator. You got to bring in a swinging, a real offensive coordinator. You got to bring in somebody who's got his own room. Like, you know what, Flo? You sit over there. I got the offense. The offense is my baby. I got it. You don't worry about the offense. You need a guy with that much swag as the offensive coordinator. Because you don't know offense very well, and you need somebody who's going to take it, who's like, this is my offense. This is my resume. This is my baby. I want it. You need that kind of guy. This nonsense bringing up guys already loyal to him, it was destined to be a failure. So he needs to bring in a big dog OC. Ken Dorsey, hey, he did wonders with Josh Allen. Now, I always get a little bit hesitant because some players are just naturally gifted, so you don't want to give too much credit to the coaches. But Dorsey looks like, bring him in some capacity. He's done a good job there. And we know his history down here. So you want to bring in Dorsey? Bring in Dorsey. Somebody with a lot of talent and potential. Some guy who's going to have a big personality, who's going to own that offense. Then you got to hire and you got to sign a bunch of vets who believe in the system, who are going to mentor and provide that stability and that backbone emotionally to this team. And one of the vets you should be signing is your own. Again, Mike Gesicki. Write it down. Get the memo, Greer, Flo, Ross. Mike Gesicki. He's one of your own. He's homegrown. He's loyal. He's a vet now. Sign him. He could be a backbone. And then there's guys in that locker room right now that are not content with the regime, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. That they're not content with the direction of the franchise right now or the team. But if there's guys like that and we are going to try to stick with this regime, then you got to let those guys go because they're just going to be a toxic influence. If you're going to stick with Tua, then the guys that don't believe in Tua because you made them not believe in Tua, because you showed them you don't believe in Tua by trying to trade for Watson for so long, even still, if they don't believe in him and you're going to roll with him, you got to get them out too. And this isn't what I'm saying to do because I disagree with all this. I'm just saying if Ross does stick with the same regime, we don't get Watson and all this, this is just what I'm saying we could do and should do. It's the only thing we can do. And then you let Flo try to roll with a clean slate, with a better offensive coordinator, with some vet players that can help instill confidence and backbone like we did last year. And then you continue to develop your players and your quarterback. And you better bring vets onto that offensive line. I'll tell you that right the hell now. And you better trade some draft picks for players that are proven commodities. I don't know why we didn't go after Marlon Mack. And Dudley, go watch DDW's show from yesterday where he's talking about potential moves we can make at the trade deadline. He did a great job analyzing and identifying trade targets that we could have picked up. Guys in their mid-20s who were offensive linemen and things, solid role players that we could have picked up that we should have, but we didn't. And the reason we should be trading draft picks for proven, not just proven superstars. We should be trading draft picks for proven role players because we can't draft them ourselves. So we might as well use the draft picks on guys we know who can play roles in the league. Not superstars, just solid role players. We should be doing that too. What I really think should happen is if this team continues to slide, i.e. if we win 2 or 3 more games max, which I think is likely at this point, because who are we beating? Let's be honest. We're lucky to split with the Jets. We might beat the Giants, but they've been holding their own a little bit. I don't know who we're going to beat. If we only win 1 to 3 more games the rest of the year, here's what, if I was in charge of the team, if I was Ross, first thing I do is tell Greer, look, you've been with the team a long time. Thank you so much for your service. But the fact is, you told me you were going to be able to strip this thing down to the bare bones and build it back up. And we have a team that is worse than before you started the rebuild. Before you even stripped it down, that team was better than this team. So what you told me you were going to do, you failed. You also made the wrong head coaching hire. And your personnel decisions have been questionable. Chris, I will hold a ceremony for you. I will give you a severance. I owe you contract money. I will hold you a fancy dinner. You are always welcome to call me. We will always be friends. But Chris, I'm going to have to let you go. That's the first thing I would do. If I'm letting Chris Greer go, I'm also letting Brian Flores go. Then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to conduct a nationwide search and hold interviews with people who are prime candidates to be a general manager in this league. And I'm not talking about some guy I used to hang out with who worked for, the Kansas City Chiefs 20 years ago. And I'm not talking about some real estate buddy from New York who knows a friend of a friend who's the cousin of Mike Tannenbaum. And I'm not talking about some mid-level management guy from New England who's so hyped up because of the Patriot way. No, I'm talking about I'm going to hire a search firm and I'm going to use my people that I have on the payroll because I'm a billionaire and I am constantly doing analysis of various things, and I'm going to scour the nation to identify 5 of the best football executives. 5 of the best football executives in the country. I don't care what team, I don't care what level, anything. That consensus is these are the 5 best up-and-coming guys, or the 5 best who have done it before. And then I am going to conduct 5 intensive interviews with visions for the team. And when I say visions for the team, I'm not just saying, who are you going to hire? That's funny, John. Who am I going to hire for the coach or what players? No. I'm talking about organizationally. I want to know how you conduct your scouting. I want to know how you conduct your regional reporting mechanisms for scouts. I want to know how you do your reports, how you do your analysis on players. I want to know what metrics you prefer to do the different analyses on different players. I want to know how you're going to go about identifying a head coach that you could use. I want to know your entire system and vision and philosophy from the nitty gritty, what airline you take to meet with your Western regional scout and why, all the way to why you value such and such, qualities in a starting quarterback. I want to know everything about you. And when I find somebody who fits, who has a good philosophy, who has a philosophy that identifies and vibes with South Florida, because your regional culture matters too. Your fan culture, the players you want to attract, your media market. I want a guy who knows how to run a football organization top to bottom, who would fit in with what we're trying to do and the history of South Florida and Miami and the Miami Dolphins. And I want to bring him on and let him decide who the head coach is, who the quarterback. Let him do everything. And I'm going to, Stephan Ross, again, I wouldn't be Stephan Ross. So if this was me, I would then say, you ask me a question if you want. Other than that, the job's yours. You implement your philosophy. I'm going to go do real estate deals. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to smoke a cigar. You do what you got to do. It's yours. And if that guy wants Flores to keep, fine. To hire him back. If he wants somebody else, let him do whatever he wants. He wants to fire scouts, change scouts, do that. And then when it comes to somebody like Watson, if Watson still wants to be a Dolphin and the lawsuits are settled, or they look like they're going to be settled favorably, or he's going to get a minor suspension or whatever, and this guy that I hired thinks Watson is the right centerpiece for the organization, and he is a franchise-changing guy, then he can go ahead and get him. And if he doesn't think so, then he can get somebody else. But if I was the owner of the team, that's how I would handle this offseason. That's how I would handle this offseason. But then again, I'm not the owner of this team. Ross is the owner of this team. And I have serious doubts about Ross conducting the interview process for the GM the way that I would. I have a feeling he doesn't. I also have a feeling he gets attached to guys that he has a personal relationship with. And somebody in there said, oh, we should keep Flores. Here's why I disagree. Not because I'm making a blanket determination about Flores per se, but because this idea that you only hire, when you say to a head coach candidate, I'm keeping this GM, you automatically limit the different people you can interview because some people don't want to work with that GM. So you're already limiting your candidate pool, which is not wise. Same thing when you're going to hire a GM and you say, well, you're stuck with this coach. You're eliminating a bunch of candidates who don't want that coach. So now you're limiting your candidate pool. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't limit your candidate pool. And one thing this franchise has consistently done, which we got to stop. Now, Ross tried to do a hard reset when he got Greer. And I didn't disagree because, again, there were some picks over the years that I liked. And I was like, maybe Greer was responsible for the good picks. So I don't want to rule him out. Maybe Ross was in the room with Greer and Tannenbaum, and he thought Tannenbaum was bad and Greer was good. He tried to do a soft reset. He said it's all Greer's. Greer hires the coach, all this. But then he meddled in this Watson decision. He meddled in Tua, I guarantee, decision. He's been meddling all along. He's always in the room with Greer, so he's still part of the brain trust. He shouldn't be. And Greer was already here. So it was a soft reset. We need a hard reset. You got to clean out everybody. We got to clean out everybody. A real reset. Bring one guy in, and I told you how I would interview him. Bring one guy in, and don't sit in the damn room when you're doing the interview. You hire a guy and you let that guy do the job. And it's got to be a brand new guy, and you can't hinder him by saying, oh, we're keeping the head coach. Because then you're going to have a new GM and with Flores. And then Flores is going to be out, and the GM's going to hire their coach finally. And then you're going to fire the GM, and then you're going to have the coach, and you're going to hire another GM. And he's like, stop. This regime, GM, coach, quarterback, gone. But if you hire the GM and the GM does his process and he likes Tua and he believes in Tua, then he keeps Tua and we roll with Tua. Just hire somebody to make all the decisions. And I don't care what they are. I don't care if it's Watson, Tua, whatever. But Ross, stay the hell out of it. Stay out of it. Just because you write checks doesn't mean you can get away with whatever else. I think Mike Shula is still around. But I don't know where. I forget where he is. But he could be another option, obviously. I mean, that's family stuff right there. That's a family affair. That's family stuff. Guys, if you haven't smashed the subscribe button, please smash that subscribe button. And share the live stream if you can. I'll be on a little while longer. I'm gonna go about, I say I'll go 2 hours. I'm at 1:37 right now, so we got a bunch more time. Yeah, maybe 20 more minutes, 25 more minutes. I'll be on with you guys. If you haven't already, smash the subscribe button and get the word out. But that's how I would handle the situation we're in. Unfortunately, it seems like where we are right now, it's going to be tough to get there because I don't see Ross doing it. I don't see Ross doing it. The only way that happens, I think, is if they lose, either they lose every single game going forward or they only win one more. The other problem is, do you guys remember the Philbin years when we win that nonsense, meaningless overtime game against Minnesota? Remember we win that meaningless, absolutely meaningless game against Minnesota. And none of us thought it mattered because it didn't. And remember right after the game, because Ross is so caught up in his emotions and he loved Philbin so much, he's like, you don't have to keep asking me. He's staying. He's got another year and he's staying. And we all were like, why? Why'd you do that? And then the very next week we lost to New England and it wasn't even close. And then we went into the next season with Philbin on the hot seat. And then Philbin gets fired midway through. And then we bring in Gase. And then he was another one that Ross wanted. It's just, I don't want to do that again. If we don't, I don't want. But I have a feeling if we show any signs of life, he's just going to use it as an excuse to keep these guys. And I think it just takes us nowhere because next season's a throwaway season. Then I'm telling you right now, you go into next season, and thanks King Mill. You go into next season with the regime, Greer, Flores, Tua, all together in the same position they're in now without much improvement. It's a throwaway season. It's a throwaway season at that point. It's a 100% throwaway season. Because these guys, for one reason or another, are not going to get it done together. So why would you go into next season without changing anything with the same regime? You know they're on borrowed time. And it's only going to be a couple games or a couple weeks until one of them or all of them are fired. And then what? Then we find ourselves next year in the same position we're in this year, where it's a dead season. Midway through the season, you fire him, you put an interim coach in, and all we're doing is waiting for the offseason again. So I don't want you to do that. I don't want them to do that. Unless they do something drastic, which is why I was looking at this Watson trade. Unless, remember that? Remember Vontae Davis when he calls grandma? Oh, man, I felt bad for him. It's funny. We have a tendency to laugh, It's like, even guys like Tua, these are kids, a lot of. They're young. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm 36. I'm old in football years. These guys are young. Like, he wanted to call his grandma because, he's in Miami, and all of a sudden he's got to ship to another town. He's 20-something years old. He's, only time he's been at home is when he went to college, and then he went to the Dolphins, and now he's being shipped out. It's, he's got to call his grandma, and Ireland has done decent where he went from there. Like I'm saying, we always put it's funny because people want to say, Parcells sucked and all that. And Parcells left because when Ross came in, he right away said, oh, this guy Ross, I can't work with this guy. I can't do it with this guy. And Parcells was out. Now, we criticize Parcells a lot. But let's talk about that for a second. You know what the biggest blunder, and this is what I'm talking about with Tua, with quarterbacks, with generational quarterbacks. Parcells' biggest blunder was Henny. I had a fantasy football team for 2 years, blame it on the Henny. Because Henny just was never going to cut it. And tying yourself to the wrong quarterback, because what's a regime? GM, head coach, quarterback. Tying yourself to a quarterback that doesn't succeed is pretty much the death knell. That's it. He tied himself to Henny. But honestly, those teams, the offensive lines for some of Sperano's years, the culture he built was a tougher team. They were a tougher team. So it's all been downhill from there because if you watch, when did Ross's personality take over the Dolphins? Think about it. He comes in, Parcells leaves. He doesn't want anything to do with him. What's the first hire that Ross makes? Joe Philbin. A, softish, geeky, picking up gum wrappers off the floor. You watch him on Hard Knocks. He's not personable. He looks like he can't really talk to the players. He's not a leader of men. He's flimsy guy. And then what happens? And I agree, Joe, good point. He should have drafted Matt Ryan, and I think that whole Parcells conversation and that whole Sperano conversation would be vastly different had he drafted Matt Ryan, still brought in Chad to start the 1 year, and then Matt Ryan took the reins. I think we'd be having a totally different conversation. And that's what I mean. Quarterback means so much. But then, Philbin, and then we start getting weak, and Ross, because again, what's Ross's thing? He's all about the glitz, and he just about the rumors he hears. He's one of these guys. He doesn't read the actual book. He just reads the cliff notes, right? So Ross just thinks it's in his mind as soon as he takes over. You know what the Dolphins need? The Dolphins need a flashy, fast-paced offense. I'm not saying he's wrong, but he was so obsessed with this idea of an X's and O's, genius offensive guy, an offensive guru who's going to put up points and put fans in the stands. And just like the orange carpet, I need fans in the stands. So we're going to throw the ball everywhere. And so he goes out and gets Philbin because Philbin's supposed to be this X's and O's mastermind. But it turns out he's not a leader of men. He can't get the guys motivated. He can't speak to the players. He's a complete and utter failure. So Philbin's gone. And who's the next guy? Adam Gase. What's he have in common? Same thing. He's an offensive guru. He's got the X's and O's, and he's a scrawny little guy, and he's not a leader of men, and he's not very personable, but he's an X's and O's guru guy. And what happens? He starts throwing his players under the bus. Oh, why'd you do this? Oh, the players can't do it. The players suck. Because he's not a leader of men. Where did we see Ross's influence? With Philbin and Gase. That's a reflection. That tells you a lot about Stephan Ross, that he hired those two guys. Tells you a lot about him, that he hired those two guys. Says a lot about him. I think Steve, you asked me who's advising him. I don't know, he's got all these different advisors, but I think he liked those guys. I think that's his read. That's why we got to question him from jump. He's got a bad analysis process. He doesn't know how to read the right guys. He picks the wrong guys. So finally, he gets Tannenbaum involved, who was a failure with the Jets. And now he brings Greer in, which, look, Greer, I don't hold as much against him because it's a different kind of direction. It's a guy who's a football guy who's been here a long time, so he gives him a chance. That's the first time I saw him give him a chance, but then he butts his head in again, and Greer made some bad hires. That's okay. Like, I'd be willing to forgive Ross for Greer if he just moved on from Greer because Greer just wasn't the answer, but he gave him a chance. But if he's interfering with Greer, like, oh, draft Tua, don't take Watson for this, then it's not the same. Then I can't even put it all on Greer. I have a sneaking suspicion that Ross, as much as he says he doesn't have anything to do with football, as much as he has the image that all I do is write checks, BS. He's involved. He wants to be Jerry Jones. He's too involved. He thinks he's too smart for everybody in the room. That's what he thinks. That's what he thinks. And yeah, remember that incident, Richard, with the cocaine and the prostitute with the assistant coach for Gase, and that just shows you like what Ross's gauge for hiring people. And look, at least Greer and Flores are respectable men, respectable, upstanding guys. But again, who's the first group that he hires that has some acumen of being leaders? It's when he just deferred to Greer and let him hire the coach. His two coaches, Gase and Philbin. What failures. What weak-spined presentations they had. And, Ronnie, that's another thing. Like, Dan Marino doesn't really want to do it. He's more of a figurehead. But you bring a guy like Zonka, I don't know, even if not as the GM, as some kind of other advisor. Bring some guys who know the old culture, who care. You know who I think? Not necessarily for GM, but to be involved in some way because he recently made comments because he's had enough. He's sick of it too, who I think is a really, really smart guy, who I think does care, who I think if you give him the chance, he might actually be able to do something. Jason Taylor. I mean, give him a call. I mean, I'm not saying make him the GM. But, I mean, give him a call. I mean, a lot of businessmen are involved in their business, but at the end of the day, if you're a good businessman, the best businessmen know how to delegate. The best businessmen know how to hire the best people to do the job to the best of their ability. The best businessman knows his limitations. That's why he's a successful businessman, when you know your limitations. Micromanagers never make good businessmen. Those who know their own limitations and know the best leaders and managers know how to make the most of the talents of the people around them. When you're an effective manager, you know how to identify the strengths and weaknesses of yourself and those around you, and you put people in positions where their strengths will shine and where they can best utilize their strengths to enhance your organization. That's the best way to do it. Meddling in the people you delegate to isn't how you run an organization effectively. It's hiring the people that are the best to handle those tasks and then letting them do it without getting in their way. And recognizing when they need more support from you financially or with personnel, or recognizing when they're not cut out for the job and making the switch when you need to. And yeah, I think Yeah, I mean, Jason Taylor, just for something. I mean, even if it's an advisor, I mean, you need somebody who cares deeply about the organization, also has some football acumen. But again, I would go back to, I don't think Ross is an unintelligent man. I think he just hasn't gone about hiring people. You know, and remember that Phin-Sanity. Phin-Sanity says, why do a bunch of stuff for other organizations' fan bases? Phin-Sanity, do you remember, and do you guys remember that, what was it? Was it Tim Tebow Day? Tim Tebow Day. Remember when he tried to pull that? I mean, Tim Tebow Day, a visiting fan. Again, it shows you where his mind is at. It shows you where his mind is at. Who the hell does that? He's tone deaf. And that's why I think he had something to do with the Tua decision. Because I think he saw the hype and the jersey sales and the name and the commercials, and he that's where his mind is. Glitz and glamour, orange carpet, Tim Tebow Day. All of those things. And I wouldn't be surprised. You know, we're all talking about this Watson settling his lawsuit situation. We're all talking about it and assuming. We're assuming that Ross wants him to settle his lawsuits because he doesn't want to deal with the risk that he gets suspended or that he can't play. We're giving him the benefit of the doubt that that's why he wants them settled. Well, based on everything we know about Ross, I wouldn't be surprised if he wants it settled just because of the media backlash and the publicity issues. I wonder if he doesn't even thinking about the football risk, but he's just thinking about the media backlash because that's all he cares about. This glitz and glamour, this fanfare, this making a big splash. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the main reason that he doesn't want Watson and he wants him to settle the lawsuits. And it's not even about the risk mitigation. It's one thing, too, there are different businesses, right? What works for one business and what works in one industry doesn't necessarily work in another industry. A smart man knows when he's dumb. A smart man knows when he's out of his element. And what do I mean by that, right? I'm an attorney. I know when I'm discussing legal matters with other people, I know I'm in my element. I know that I'm speaking from a position of knowledge on the subject. But I know that when I go in to get my car fixed, I'm not going to let myself be ripped off, but I'm not going to go in and tell the mechanic what he's got to do and how he's got to do it. You know why? Because I'm smart enough to recognize that I'm out of my element in the mechanics business. I'm out of my element in accounting. I'm out of my element in football coaching. Ross doesn't seem like he's smart enough to know that while he might be the best real estate developer ever, maybe, he's not. He's out of his element in football. He wants it to be a successful business, but he doesn't understand the common basic principle that you got to win to be. The best way to make money is to win, not to have Tim Tebow Day, not to have an orange carpet, but win. And the way to win is sometimes unglamorous. Sometimes you got to pick a guy who's got better ratings coming out of the draft and not the big name. Sometimes you got to eat some bad publicity at first to get successful seasons down the road. I don't think he quite gets that. He's always looking for the quick buck. But when you're a real estate developer too, a lot of times you build something to sell it off. You buy something to flip it. You're always worried about ROI, return on investment. And, you know, it's interesting. Now, when you're asking me about the Watson stuff, here's the simple fact. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. If it's true, he deserves to be punished to the full extent of the law. If there's any non-truth to it, if it's not true, or if, you know, it's not what the facts are reported now, the way it's been accused, then something just and fair needs to happen for all parties. And I'll tell you this, a complaint in a civil lawsuit, when they make an accusation to sue somebody, that's not facts. That's not news. They have to go through a whole process to determine what the truth is. That's just the accusation by one side. They're free to make that accusation. They can make the craziest, they can make any accusation they want. And no one can tell them they can't make the accusation. You could say anything you want about anybody and file it in court. If it's not true, it'll get dismissed. But you got to go through a process to determine if it's true before that happens. So anybody can make an accusation. I can tell you the accusations are not a criminal charge. I can tell you that. I can tell you that right now the law enforcement authorities in Houston are investigating these accusations and they're taking it seriously. And if they think there's probable cause to file a criminal charge and to pursue the cases criminally and to try to prosecute Watson in criminal court, they will do that. And the district attorney of Houston will do that and will convene a grand jury for that purpose if she feels it's proper. But we're not there yet. Right now, it's a civil lawsuit where people accused him and they're suing him for money damages for what they say he did. And he's going to have a chance to ask them questions, to get records from them. They're going to get records back and forth. They're going to argue about other things. And then at the end of that, somebody's going to file a motion, most likely, to dismiss the case. His side's going to say has no merit. Her side's going to say, yes, it does. We want to proceed to the next level. And it's going to take some time. But a lot of those steps haven't even happened yet. Right now, they just filed the case, and they're going through very, very basic preliminary steps. Nothing's happened yet. So I can't tell you right now whether it's true or not. And it is a risk. And like I said, if Stephan Ross wanted to make the decision months ago that it's not worth the risk, fine. He should have said that months ago, not 2 hours ago. And if he doesn't think the risk is that great, because he obviously couldn't think it's that crazy if he's been talking to him for months, then he shouldn't pull the plug at the last second and put some arbitrary thing in there that he needs to settle his cases before he brings them in. He's not going to be able to settle his cases in a couple days. And Gene, you say, I disagree that a QB is the end-all, be-all. I'd rather have a great with okay QB than have a great QB with an okay team. I don't know about that. You take Peyton Manning out of Indianapolis and they go from best to worst. He won a ring. You take Brady out of New England and they're like middling at best. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, I think, 2 years in a row. You know, you take some of these great quarterbacks and they go to bed. I think a quarterback makes a team a lot better than we're giving it credit for. I think if you have an okay quarterback and a really good team, it's few and far between that you win championships. Trent Dilfer, yeah. Kerry Collins got to the Super Bowl, lost. Eli Manning, pretty damn good quarterback, very good under pressure, but not an amazing quarterback, but he had a very good team around him. He won twice, but he was a clutch quarterback when it counted. That's big too. But in the modern NFL, if you better have a really great team. I'm talking everybody on offense, everybody on defense better be amazing. Like an amazing system on both sides of the ball if you're going to run out there and expect to be a Super Bowl contender with just an okay quarterback. You have a much better, put it this way, you have a better chance of making the Super Bowl and winning it with a great quarterback and a middle team than you do with a middle quarterback and a great team. That's just the truth. Because you got to be clutch, and the guys you're going against are clutch. But you look at a Josh Allen team, the Bills. They are a very good team on both sides of the ball, and they have that quarterback with that killer instinct. Similar to the Chiefs. Now they're almost unstoppable. If you take Josh Allen off the Bills, are they as explosive and dangerous? No. Look at him yesterday. When we cut off the receivers, he started running people over. If you don't have a guy like that, I don't know. The Bills are still good, but how good are they without him? How good are the Chiefs without Mahomes? Do they win the ring without Mahomes? How good is Tampa without Brady? Start asking yourself that. You know? Raphael, you can't rule certain things out because it's a weird situation, I'll tell you that much. We'll see what the facts are. We'll see what comes out. We'll see what happens through the course of this case. Everybody's entitled to litigate their case. The women who are accusing him are entitled to have their day in court, and he's entitled to have his day in court as an innocent until proven guilty. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. But I don't know. I mean, I think, and then look at the Titans. I was just going to say that, Ricardo. Thank you for saying it before I did. I was going to say that. Think about the Titans. They're a real good team with Henry and all that, with that good defense, that solid group of guys, but just an okay QB. You really think they're going to the Super Bowl now that Henry's out? Most people don't. An elite quarterback would make an elite quarterback makes all the difference. Makes a huge, 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 huge difference. Why the hell would you start trade speculation, shatter Tua's confidence, and have nothing to show for it? This is beyond the most poorly run franchise in the NFL. James Bond, number one, your name is awesome. I love James Bond, and you got a cool name. Number two, I agree with you. That's the biggest thing to me. I'm not going to, fight Stephan Ross on whether he thought it was a good decision or not. There's a big risk that comes with Watson. Publicity-wise, on the field-wise, legally, there's a big risk. I don't blame him for that decision, but if he was going to make it months ago. Why shatter to his confidence and dangle it in front of all of us and undermine the whole team because now everybody thinks we're getting Watson, or at least we wanted him, just to at the last minute have second thoughts? How indecisive are you? You're running a multi-billion-dollar organization, a high-profile organization that has fans across the world. So many fans that I could sit here on a Tuesday at 4:55 and be talking to all of you guys just on the strength of the Miami Dolphins name and history. You don't have time to be indecisive until 2 hours before, and that's when you make the final decision? Are you nuts? Phin-Sanity, you're right. Why the hell are we on there? We don't deserve any notoriety. We don't deserve any showcasing. We don't deserve anything. We've been such a joke. Such a joke. So unfortunately, the joke continues. Unfortunately, the futility continues. Unfortunately, that's where we are. We don't have any hope right now. All we can hope for is a miracle that somehow we rattle off so many wins and so many impressive performances by guys like Tua Tagovailoa, Mike Gesicki, Waddle, Van Ginkel, that it inspires Holland, that it inspires some confidence in us, somehow, some way, that we actually have a chance to do something in the future. That's all we can hope for, pray for right now. Because unless that happens, and it's unlikely to happen, we have absolutely nothing to look forward to. We've got nothing to look forward to. And that's a sad place to be as fans. And today we didn't even make a trade for anything, for anybody. We did nothing. We just said, no, we're going to sit here and do nothing. And I think as fans, we're owed a little bit more than that. I mean, we're not owed much. It's not like we own the team, but we're owed something. Who bought this shirt? Who buys the logo? Who buys the tickets? Who creates interest and excitement? Who buys the materials? Who does it? We do it. So we deserve a little bit more than this nonsense. Crypto, can't argue with that. So it is what it is, and it's a sad, sad state of affairs. And I had to get on and just talk to you guys about it. Guys, if you haven't already, I know I keep saying it, but I'm trying to, grow the audience so we can keep doing this. So if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Send the video out. The video is live, but it's going to be available to watch, when I get off the air. Please share the video in Dolphins groups you are in with your friends, whoever, if you liked what was discussed in here. And level 2 noob, yes, it's true. Mediocre, true. It's sad, but it's true. It's sad, but it's true. And that's where we are. That's where we are. So, guys, I'll be back Unless anything else crazy happens. I told you I'd be on when news broke today, and news did break, and it's unfortunate news, but news did break. So I was here, and if and when there's other news or something else worthy of discussing, anything like that, I'll be back on the air live. Until then, I'll see you guys. I'll do a video Sunday. I'll do a video Sunday post-game. Let's hope we can finally get a win, even though it doesn't mean a damn thing. I almost would laugh. We're going to see Watson probably on the TV. I mean, and I'll talk about the game Sunday. And then, I mean, at this point, guys, yeah, I mean, we say this all the time, right? Fans need to back off, but you're going to see it, and I don't blame them. I don't blame anybody in Miami. I don't blame anybody in South Florida. I don't blame them one bit if they're not at the game. Why should they go to the games? The product is terrible. You're paying for a product. As a consumer, you're paying for a product, and the product is terrible. And management and ownership is not even telling you that they're even listening to you. They're not giving you anything to hope for, and they're not even telling you straight out what's what. They're not even telling you a couple months ago, we're concerned with the legal situation, we're not going for Deshaun Watson. They're not even telling you that. They're waiting until the last minute to have you reading all this media and consuming all this stuff and having all these fights amongst ourselves and getting all heated and getting all these emotions just to pull the plug at the last minute. That's how much they're manipulating us as fans. So, you know what? Those who say I'm not going to go, that stuff, I feel you. And I don't blame you. And John, thank you for that tip. And I'm gonna do that soon. So again, smash that subscribe button. You guys were a pleasure. You guys were a blast. It was awesome talking to you guys. I love talking to you guys live. It's real. It's something else. It's awesome. So I look forward to doing more of those. Share this video, like the video, and please tune into the next video whenever I drop it, which will be most likely Sunday or a day after. Love you guys. Dolphin Nation, we'll get through this, and I will speak to all you guys very, very soon. Again, fins up. Talk to you later, guys. Peace.